Hello, this is Audrey Gordon, and I'd like to welcome you to day 13 of the 25 days of Copilots. Today, we're going to think about generating Copilot knowledge repositories. And what I mean by that is back in the day, we had knowledge repositories that maybe were in many different document libraries. Maybe people kept track of different sites on SharePoint, or perhaps they, had a bookmark list things. And I actually noticed in my own career how you can get really good at managing links to things. But what if we created a very smart Copilot that could take away the need to know where stuff was and just leave us with a place to get information? And I think of this in two different ways. Way number one is for supporting your internal workforce, the employees that work in your company who have to switch contexts relatively frequently and just to find stuff. They need an answer. Maybe they work with customers. Maybe they work with the support team. Maybe they're planning some type of campaign and they just have to dig up knowledge. This can be very time consuming, and Copilots can help. On the other side of the coin, and this is the one we hear about probably the most, is having Copilots that we expose to our public websites so that, the more our website has in content, the more challenging it can be for our customers to find what they're looking for, right? And it's kind of a good problem to have. But once you see a problem like that, where there's so much content that it's hard to find what you need, here is really where Copilots shine, because using conversation, they help the customer to locate what they need in a more comfortable manner without having to rely on simple keyword search. So we're going to go today to Copilot Studio, and all of you should be able to reach it from this link. If you have not already used it, you'll be invited to open up a trial account and you can try this out. All right, so copilotstudio.microsoft.com. For those of you who have never used it before, you could use the aka.ms link, try Copilot. All right, let's go over there and look at this up close, and let's create a knowledge management type bot. Okay, so I'm going to go over to Copilot Studio. And from here, I am directly from the home page. I'm going to just click Create a Copilot. And I'm going to call this, and I'm going to explain the scenario, but I'm going to call this a pen concierge. Sorry, pen concierge. Let's see if Audrey can spell concierge. So what I'm thinking is kind of like in a hotel when you go to the concierge desk, you can ask them just about anything. There's no rules on what you can ask. You can ask what's going on in the neighborhood. You could ask, where's the spa? You can ask about room service. So it's basically a place where you're comfortable just asking whatever you're thinking, and there's no rules, right? And they'll tell you if they don't know, right? So I'm going to make a pen concierge. Those of you that have followed me for years probably know that I'm a fanatic on fountain pens. And when you're into fountain pens, there's a lot to know. And I have to say that one of my favorite suppliers of fountain pens, of the zillions of wonderful suppliers out there, is the Goulet Pen Company. The Goulet Pen Company is a company that has invested a lot in their website. And I'm going to paste the link to it here. So I'm just going to go get Goulet Pen's website. And I'm going to go here and paste it here. And I'm pasting it here directly from the root, not trying to point to anything particular on their site. And basically, this is my first prerequisite. I'm going to click Create. Now, we're going to be able to watch this fun animation as it creates this Copilot, so that I can stop and explain a few things here so that you recognize the high value on that single action. So basically, back in the day, not too long ago, when we had Power Virtual Agents, when that first came out, one of the things that we had to always do is kind of set up Q&A. Now, this is like our, how do people ask questions and get answers back in Power Virtual Agencies? It was purely through topics, right? We could create topics. We could have them created for us, so to speak, by connecting the Power Virtual Agent to a site that maybe had facts, or we could connect it to a document that maybe had facts. But then we would still kind of massage our topics that might get generated. We might create our own. And what I noticed about this new approach from a generative AI perspective is we don't have to worry about the topics as much. We'll talk about that. But for the most part, you get a whole lot out of the box, especially for the scenarios where you have a very dense content site, right? So again, talking about those content sites that have so much that the good problem you have is people getting to what they need quickly. Those kind of sites are prime for this, as opposed to maybe you just have a brand new website that has one page and that page has limited information. That might not be the best scenario for this. Goulet Pens have been working a long time on their content, and they are just passionate. So it's not just about sales in their case. They're just passionate about writing with fountain pens. And many of us out there have learned much. So there's a very dense site involved here. So since my Copilot is in a test place, we just got it here, I'm going to click first on Go to Generative AI. And I'm starting here because here's where the power sits, okay? I'm going to scroll down, and there's a couple things I want to turn on. We'll talk more about chaining later. If not myself, probably Daniel will kind of talk about this a little bit. And then there's Boost Conversational Covered with generative answers. And this is turned on for me. But if it isn't turned on, go ahead and turn it on. Notice that the website that I added is already here. So it becomes like the first source of information that this Copilot knows about. And there you can decide whether it gets tightly moderated or more loosely moderated. The more tightly you set this, high, the higher this gets, the more it will look for precise answers. And the looser you set it, the more opportunity perhaps for more answers, but they may not be as relevant. Okay, so it depends. The other thing you have on this page is you have the ability to upload documents. This is very helpful when you have content that's highly specialized, where you have maybe done white papers, or maybe you have done specific documentation such as studies. So studies, white papers, FAQs, that you actually want the Copilot to look at those things, always look at those things whenever they're considering how to generate responses. The thing to remember on these, though, is that they are going to depend on your Dataverse capacity. And so there is a limit here shown here, up to 3 megabytes per file. But how many files and how big they can be also are impacted by the capacity that you have in Dataverse. Whereas there's no capacity impact on a website level, and there's no capacity impact if you want to leverage SharePoint sites. All right, so I'm going to hit save here. And basically, I really didn't do that much. That was it. This Copilot is now ready to support both the employees at your business, being that, imagine that your business is Goulet Pens, right? It's able to support the employees as well as the customer base right now. Nothing else has to be done. Now, I want to show you something under topics, right? Under topics. If you look at your system topics, you will notice there is a topic called conversational boosting, which was created for you, which you don't have to create. But if I click and look at the details for that topic, you're going to notice the data sources associated with conversational boosting. And this is where the power of the foundation model for GPT is driving underneath this to pay close attention to the data sources that we have configured for this Copilot so that it can generate the appropriate responses. And if we click on edit here, we'll see that our website is there, and also an opportunity to add SharePoint sites and OpenAI services. Now, we're not going to talk about those two today, but I will say that they are extremely powerful, especially if you've been managing documentation on SharePoint. Just remember that Copilots do not grant permissions to anybody. So when you use SharePoint, you have to do two things, and the second thing might require many action items. But thing number one is you're going to have to configure your security, and we will talk about that later on in the series. The second thing you'll have to do is make sure that the documentation that's on SharePoint has a consistent permission model to what you're trying to achieve. So let me explain. If I'm an employee at Goulet Pens and the SharePoint site that has the latest white papers, right? If I don't have access to that site, the Copilot will not generate resources for me from that site. It will not use that content as a way to generate responses. So it's important that you think about how the documentation on SharePoint is permissioned to your internal audiences if you use it here. Because it's possible you have 50 documents in that site, but only 2 are open to the general internal audiences at your company. So therefore, those 2 would be used by all the Copilots for generative answers, whereas people who have access to the others will get more broader generated answers. So keep security and permissions in mind when you get involved in SharePoint. But today, I'm focused on that dense website, which is open to the public. There's nothing private about this, all right? So there's nothing I have to do here for this demonstration today because I am just focusing on the public website. But I just wanted to show you that any conversations that take place here are going to run into this conversational boosting area. All right, so and it seems like the word topics has changed to plugins. So if you're looking for topics over here, just try plugins and you should see all your topics, your plugin actions, and your system, right? And the conversational boosting is here under system, or you can just leave it on all and you'll see it there. All right, so let's see if this is really helpful. I'm going to turn tracking on here so that we can see when this goes into its work as far as where I should go to get an answer. I'm just going to say, and here you can see it says hello, and this is an instant testing place right here. Of course, you can decide where you're publishing it to. If I was using an internal audience scenario, in this case, I would publish probably to Teams because that's where most people collaborate, but you have many choices as to where you can publish. And then if it was for the website itself, I would publish this bot to the website. And this is testing that experience. So let's just go in here and say something simple. I want to buy my daughter a new fountain pen. So I think I'm not even going to say new. I'm going to say a fountain pen. But I don't want to spend more than $100. And I know you're probably thinking $100, that's a lot of money for a pen, but actually maybe not. But that's their budget. And notice that first of all, it has jumped into purchase information, kind of wanting to know where it's going. And so I'm just going to type here Washington. And then I'm going to just say fountain pen. I think I have a topic I need to turn off. So if you look here on the right, you'll notice that the topic that's kicked off in this test is lesson 3. And we don't even want lesson 3, right? So let's go back to topics and let's find lesson 3 and let's just turn it off, right? So we can go here, lesson 1, 2, and 3. They are basically examples that you can use to study what can you do in a topic. How do those topics turn, right? And so I'm going to turn off lesson 1, 2, and 3 just to see if that impacts any change here. And I'm going to restart my Copilot after having done that. And I'm going to go back to, I wish I had copied that text. Good morning. I would like to buy a pen for my daughter. All right, let's lower the money here. Daughter, but I'd like to spend less than $50. Let's cut it in half, right? And then I'm going to highlight that and copy it just in case we need to use it again. When you're testing, you may have to type something more than once. So just make a little OneNote with all the different things you want to test. That might be a good plan for testing Copilots. Have something. So now you see that on the right, we have jumped into conversational boosting. And that's what we wanted to happen, okay? Before it jumped into lesson 1, 2, and 3, which are sample topics that have nothing to do with the intent of this Copilot that I'm building right now with you. So I turned those off, and now it went straight to the data sources. It went straight to conversational boosting. And notice it says, I can help you find a pen for your daughter within your budget. Here are some fountain pens that are priced under $50. Now, I will say that the first time I saw this, I was literally blown away because it is not just showing us, here is where you can see all the fountain pens. It is actually talking to us and communicating with us on this price, and it's paying attention that it's a daughter. So it feels very natural, and yet it feels like it's communicating, and that's exactly what a customer would want, right? You can try a few ways of asking the same question just to test kind of how it generates the answers. I added, for the first question that we asked, I went ahead and added that I wanted it to select 5 pens for me. So I just will go down to the end and you'll see this when I hit send. So I said, I just added another sentence here. Please suggest 5 pens in that category. And now it's going specifically to only offer 5 pens. And so now I can continue to ask questions about these pens, but you can see right away it highlights, of those 5 pens that are considered like entry level, here are the reasons why people like them. And so this is really cool because it's actually giving me some advice on the kind of pens that I use. So let's see if we can find another question. And so maybe I'm thinking about the TWSBI, and I said, is the TWSBI Echo easy to clean? I don't know if I'll get an answer here. We'll see what happens. I'm going to hit send. And basically, I'm referring to one was on the list. And therefore, it picks up, okay, and it starts looking at the content on that website to see what content relates to the TWSBI Echo and how it can be cleaned. And actually, it goes into giving me instructions. I don't even need to go to the site and click on any of these resources, although I can. I can get to these links, which will take me to much of the content on the site, which includes video content. But I can just read right here what I have to do and determine whether this would be too hard for my daughter or not. Really easy. And what the Copilot will do is actually be able to help your end user, whether it be an employee or a customer, locate the information they need with more than a keyword search. We saw in this case, as we tested, we saw that we were able to ask for a particular price range of pens. We were also able to ask questions about a pen that looked good on the list. And we could have gone on for a while until we selected the pen that we'd like. Now, the company can decide to add plugins here that could finish that journey. And what I mean by that is you just don't get answers from the Copilot, but you could actually select a pen for purchase. And they can use an API here in order to purchase that pen. There could be that level of experience because of the extensibility options here. And all of this can be done so quickly. You don't have to dedicate months to a knowledge management Copilot. You can get it done within a day. And one thing I'll point out is make sure you test, make sure you have the appropriate kind of trial and error. Might have a couple of people test it for you. Decide whether you need documentation or not. If you do, where should it live? Should it live on SharePoint? Should it live in Dataverse? If it's in Dataverse, then you would upload it. If it's in SharePoint, then you need to manage security. And we'll talk about this more as the series goes on. But I just want to kind of whet your appetite into how quickly you can create these Copilots for specialized services. So I'll leave you with that for the 13th day of the 25 days of Copilot. And I'll be seeing you tomorrow for the next topic, which is similar in nature, but which is going to give you a little bit more. All right, so enjoy it and happy holidays.